Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, The Black Accountant. It's your boy Mo, and if you haven't already done so, you know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, and let me know in the comments of any kind of content you want to see going forward. And don't forget to turn on notification bells because it notifies you whenever I upload a video or when I drop. I think from what I read online is that you might get notifications of when I like comments or something along those lines. I'm not really sure how to turn that off yet if it's on my end, but I'll try to see if I could do that if it's something that I need to fix. But if you guys just kind of keep track, then you'll see when I upload, and I actually do plan to be a lot more consistent with my uploads going forward. And I think I'm probably going to make a separate video where I kind of go a little bit more into detail about 2021 and my expectations for 2022, and just really how I'm going to be moving a little bit different well, I like saying going forward, but next year / end of this month. So keep posted for that. But today I wanted to talk about a topic that I find to be very, very interesting, and that is consideration. And when specifically does consideration become cowardice? And as you know, I like to usually talk about why I'm talking about the subject itself. And this was sparked recently by a conversation that I was having with a friend after a recent trip to Portland. And anybody that's watching this from that trip obviously knows you're probably people I'm talking about. So let's start off. So what is consideration, or at least in the context that I'm trying to talk about it? Consideration is plain and simple, is when you put thought into your actions and your words because you are considering somebody else, and you're considering somebody else's emotions, reactions, money, time, etc. Some examples of that would be showing up exactly on time because you're considerate of somebody else's time. You know, you want to make sure that you're meeting exactly when you said you would because that person may have plans or other things. You're being considerate of their time. Same thing as like if you're out with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and they usually spend or pick up the tab a lot, and you know that they're kind of like, they don't make too much money, or they're kind of always carrying that burden. Some consideration there would be, you know, okay, maybe I can't afford to pay this right now. Let me choose something that's a little bit cheaper on the wallet at a restaurant, or let me pick up the tab myself this time, or something along those lines. Those are considerations or types of consideration. But specifically, I want to focus in on emotional consideration, and when is that plausible and when is it actually cowardice. So I grew up in an environment where I was constantly curbing around other people and sort of minimizing myself and what I needed in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of support, whether that was emotional or just regular support, in favor of other people. And it started out as consideration. You know, it's just like doing these nice things because, you know, you start putting other people before you and then worrying about their perceptions, worrying about how they feel and taking care of them. You know, it's a sign of love. So some people, that's their love language. And that's how they operate in kindness. But at some point, you become too much of a giver. In the sense, there is such a thing as too much consideration. And not only does it become taxing on you as a person that's being considerate, it also becomes taxing on the people around you that you are considering. And that's for multiple reasons, right? If I'm always thinking about somebody else and how they're reacting to stuff, basically I'm ignoring my reactions and how I feel about certain things in favor of somebody else. I'm making their emotionality and their whole being and physical and mental well-being more important than mine at all times. And it's okay to do that at times, but don't make that your default. Don't make that your norm all the time, because then by always putting other people first, you're teaching them that you come last. And any human interaction, whether that's with family, whether that's with outside individuals, whether that's at work. You have to constantly be teaching people how to treat you, because the worst treatment that you accept, you let it slide once, you let it slide twice, it becomes a norm, it becomes an expectation of you. So it's better to mitigate that risk or mitigate that possibility as early on as possible, especially when meeting new people. It's much harder to do in a family dynamic when you've been operating that way for a very long time, because then people will see it as a sudden change in you rather than something that's building up for a long time. So it's best to sort of set those boundaries. I would say with family or friends where the relationship's been established for so long, is to communicate that verbally of like why you're setting the boundaries or how, instead of just randomly cutting people, because to you it's obviously not going to be random, but to that person or those other people, they're going to see it as very random, because it's like, hey, this is how you've always operated, why are you suddenly switching up? And the consideration that you're doing also affects the people around you, because you're assuming that's the way that they would like to be received. So when does the consideration become cowardice? Let me give you an example. Let's say a group of friends, they could be driving, maybe they could just be at home, and they have the heater on. And then obviously people have different reactions to different temperatures. Some people are more comfortable in very icy environments. Other people are more comfortable when it's very hot. Other people are comfortable when it's kind of like this mid-temp. And everyone's in the group is just sitting there, right? And then one person doesn't really like how high up the heat is. Maybe it's like 80 degrees or something. And asks everybody, hey, do you mind if I turn down the heat? And everybody says, no, I don't mind. But you actually do mind. But you didn't say anything. You've been asked if it's something that bothers you, and you said, no, it does not bother you, even though it did. That's not you being considerate of that other person anymore, unless you're very much so okay with being uncomfortable, and you were just doing that and you're being quiet about it. Now, if you said no, even though you were uncomfortable with it, and you're low-key kind of salty or angry about it, that's on you, because you were given an opportunity to say something about it. You were given a very direct out of saying, hey, no, like it's like I get cold very easily or something along those lines. Now, some might argue that they wouldn't say anything in that situation because the majority are saying they're okay and you're the only person who is uncomfortable. So you don't want to be that odd person out, that's just kind of saying no. So you go with the flow. Now, I think to an extent, that's where it kind of comes into like, what is your confidence level, and how comfortable are you with sticking up for yourself, and how bothered are you by the situation? That is it something you could just let go, or is it something that you'll pass up, right? So let's say you're not, it's something that you can pass up. It's very minuscule. It's very minor, then there's no problem. You say, okay, well, even though I'll be a little bit cold, like I don't mind you turning down the heater. You could just be thinking that. And it wouldn't be a problem because you've accepted it in your mind. You've already let that go. Now, if it really does bother you a lot and you're going to kind of harbor some resentment, or it's going to make you angry, you could just respond in the moment, because if you respond in the moment, hey, do you mind if I turn the heat down? And I say, yeah, I do kind of mind because like I get cold really easily. Is it okay if we just kind of like keep it at the same level? Oh no, but I get warm very easily. Okay, is there like a medium temperature in the middle that we can kind of agree at? Very, very simple, right? Now, if you're really not comfortable with this situation and you let little things like this constantly build up and you feel some type of way about it, you're no longer confronting any kind of situation. you're just letting a whole lot of little things add up until they spiral into a big thing, and then you're creating slowly resentment towards a person or towards a situation, towards a group, slowly and slowly until it builds up. And then you just assume those other people are inconsiderate, when in reality, they were being considerate by asking questions and trying to see. And then you're minimizing yourself. You're prioritizing other people, and not providing any care to yourself or any weight to your own comfort as well. If that makes any sense, right? So I think there's various reasons that people do that. Number one, a lot of the actions that we do as adults stem from childhood. The way that you were treated as a kid, the way that you had to operate as a kid. And like, I see those as valid reasons, but at the same time, if you know the root of a problem, it's up to you as an adult to fix it. So if you know, hey, as a kid, I blah, 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 that's why this is my default. If you know it's your default, actively work to not make it your default. Actively work against your default until it's no longer your default. Another reason is just cowardice, right? It's just like, okay, I'm afraid to confront this person because I'm anticipating their reaction. I think I know how they're going to react. Therefore, I'm not going to say anything. And that can also stem from childhood and childhood trauma, in the sense where you might have dealt with very volatile family members who have one reaction one time where it's like, oh, this isn't a problem, and another reaction where it's completely over the top. So you never really know what to expect. So that's what you just kind of assume is going to be. Now that kind of makes sense, and I can see why that happens. The other is more so assuming that you know a person's capacity. And that's probably one of the most annoying things. And I actually just had this conversation recently, where you assume that you know how much somebody can handle or what they can take, and then think that you're protecting them from something, but in reality, it hurts them more because you're allowing them to do something that's bothering you, and they're considerate enough of you of to ask, and you're not telling them, and you're slowly building up resentment towards you. Or sorry, you're slowly building up resentment towards them, and they are oblivious completely to what they're doing that's bothering you, and like they have very positive feelings towards you, and you're building all these negative feelings towards that person or that group. And it's unfair because you did not confront it. And also it's unfair because at some point your bubble is going to burst, and you're going to have an outburst at that person, and they're going to feel very hurt by it. Why? Because you allowed them to continue doing something that bothered you, even though they gave you so many opportunities to say something about it. So it's unfair to put that on somebody else. So let me know what your thoughts are on this topic in the comments below. I'm very interested to hear it. And I think this is a big problem with kind people, because I think kind people are like, there's three types of kind people. They're the kind people who are kind because they want people to like them. So they do end up minimizing themselves very, very much so, to the point where it's just like they find themselves alone all the time. And that's because you don't have any kind of fighting spirit. You don't value yourself enough, and these people typically tend to get taken for granted. You should always be kind. You should be kind to everybody, but you should always establish limits and establish boundaries, because while you might have a giving nature, if you just only give and never learn how to say when's enough, people will take until you have nothing left to give. So that's number one. The second type of people that are kind are false kind, where it's like, hey, I have something to gain from you, therefore I will be kind to you until you run out of your usefulness, or until I have nothing more to gain from you. And obviously those types of people, as you get older and older, they become very easy to identify, like opportunists, people who think they're gonna be slick and try to manipulate you or whatever. Like they think they're playing this game, but most people already can see through that BS. Number three is people who are kind for the sake of being kind. And these people are very, very rare, because most people in general always have something to gain, or I always have something. It's very possible to be a kind person, but it's very difficult for all of your actions to be kind all the time. And I think for most people, we always have kind intentions, but the translation doesn't always end up being kind. So I guess I would kind of lump that in with the third category, or it could be a fourth category, really. But I don't want to branch this off into too many things. So like I was saying, let me know in the comments of what your thoughts are on this subject. Do you have a family member that does this? Are you yourself somebody that is too considerate of others? And why do you do that? Yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.